but I do want to focus on that value of the design up front, right? That education, that, hey, Mr. Homeowner, we're building this home. You could do, let's just get an early education and understand what you want to achieve in this home. Is this your permanent forever home? Do you care about energy? Do you not care about energy? Do you care about security and access? Do you not? I'll talk about this at the end, but our first two questions is, customer, how do you plan on powering your home, right? If you don't have clean, reliable power to that home, it's not very smart. Second thing is internet, right? If you don't have complete coverage of a managed network system, doesn't matter how much smart stuff you put in there, it's going to fail. So power and internet are always our first two things. So what we've learned is a design proposition without thinking about, talking about, or designing technology up front creates that mess we just went through. It's backwards, it's costly. And so when we think about a smarter building process, it's not a big change for you guys. It's a pretty simple change. Not changing the process from how a homeowner meets an architect, designs a home, brings a builder in. But now, as soon as that builder and that architect are decided, it could be as simple as a consultation, right? It's, hey, this customer wants to build a 10,000 square foot home. Here's the lot that they want to build it in. Let's set up an introductory call and just have some enlightenment, right? This is what the customer cares about. This is the bad experience, because they have had bad experiences before. I don't care what brand of system that they put in that home. They've had a bad experience. Let's talk through about how to avoid potential bad experiences. And the answer is, don't go buy stuff on the internet after the home is completed, right? That's a way to find a different type of bad experiences. So our thought is, now's a great time, now that the builder has been chosen, is to have an introductory call with the technology company that's not biased, right? That's not going to immediately try and hustle, as much as I would love to hustle a $50,000 video over IP system or a full microgrid for $1 million. That's not the cause of that initial tech design, right? It's the discovery mode. What is the customer really looking to achieve? Once we have an understanding of what the architect, the homeowner, and the builder are trying to achieve in terms of technology, it's a much easier way to now bring in your mechanical, electrical, plumbing, your low voltage, your pool contractor, and you're saying, hey guys, guess what? All your design work is done. Here's the construction drawings. Here's the plans. Here's where the wires need to go. Here's the lighting fixtures you need to order. Here's the solar panels we recommend. Here's the batteries we recommend. Here's the audio or video solution. Here's the home management solution that we recommend. These contractors love that, because all that design work that they're not great at, that they hide in the cost of their hourly labor or in the cost of their hardware, has been done for them. So.
Is that true?
Yes, that's exactly it. That makes it, it's all-in-one turnkey. You're done, it's designed, and you can hopefully count on that it works, depending on the manufacturer, right?
How do you get MEP contractors to follow that idea with that pecking order, so to speak? I mean, is there a lot of heartburn associated with that, at least?
Not really. The MEP guys, they're not really specifying anything. And again, as we're our own architect, we do all our specifications. And if we bring these guys in early enough, this is what we're doing. And they're like, oh, okay, cool, we'll do that. It makes it easier for them. It's a no-brainer for them, too. You just tell us where the outlet goes, and we'll put it there.
Yeah, MEPs are primarily labor, right? Hourly rate guys, right? They're not like the low-voltage guys that are trying to make 40 or 50 points on hardware, or some of the other suppliers that are. They're primarily there to get the work done, get out. They don't want to come back to the house. They don't want to service the house. The low-voltage guy is different. They want to service and support that house for whatever the technology needs are forever into the future for that homeowner. But for the MEP, it's pretty easy for them to say, holy crap, you already have this done for me? Like, I know exactly how many counts I need. I know exactly where these outlets are going in every single room. I just ran into this problem on a job in terms of lighting fixtures. The original electrician went out there and ordered a bunch of lighting fixtures because they were hard to get a hold of. but they didn't order enough for the whole home. So then we had to go back in, we had to reconcile all the inventory for that home, and then we had to change the design, the lighting design of that home, because they only had 54 of these special fixtures from company A, and so we had to go to another lighting company and redo 4 or 5 different major rooms with a different lighting supplier that also did circadian rhythm. So now we have 2 different manufacturing lighting circuits, fixtures in the house. So they're achieving the same thing. But it was just very messy to reconcile that lighting design and that lighting fixture. The electrician was just pissed. The MEPs were just not happy. The homeowner was throwing money at the problem. He was not happy. And so if they had done tech design at the beginning, they would have had actual counts for every single room, for every single fixture. They would have known exactly where those fixtures were looping and being home run back to inside that home.
And power distribution too. That's the other part of that. Lighting is a good point, but every piece of equipment that we use in the brain needs its own supply. And when that equipment shows up and there's no power for it to be plugged into because the MEP didn't coordinate with the tech, you're like, oh, I need 2 or 3 dedicated circuits per piece of equipment, and it's not run yet. That's always trouble we run into.
Is it just counts of this stuff, or is it a more specific specification of the actual product? Because one of the things I heard last year on the high volume side with David Weekley, and we were talking a lot about detailed design and engineering, there's like, my ECs, I have no idea what they're exactly putting in. So I don't know whether the granularity of trying to make this stuff work and create important effects for the consumer means that we're getting more specific about even the electrical products and the wiring devices, the lighting, than the electrical contractor would typically be, and that puts us in a better position on execution.
It does. We'll take it, again, all the way through a basic introductory consultation where we're just having a phone call and learning about this homeowner and the builders and the architect's design needs. And we are a specifier. That's what we do. We're one of the first specifiers that does low voltage, high voltage, and mechanical specification and design. You don't need to go to different companies to do this now. It's all centralized in a singular spot. But from a consultation to a basic design, right, where you're saying, hey, they have 12 rooms, they need audio in, they need this many TVs. But really the advanced design is taking that specification all the way into construction drawings, in which we're sending those back and forth with the MEP, with the architect of record or the GC of record, and sharing that detailed information along with those construction drawings is you're getting product proposals, right? You're gonna get a complete product proposal. If they want us to specify the technology for the entire home, we can specify that technology across the board, right? From HVAC systems to the solar array, to the battery system, to the generator, to the UPSs in the rack, to where the power lays out, to the rack elevations, to where the speakers are going, to where the subs are going, to how much access points you need, what that internet should be. Everything is spec'd out and designed up front. Now at the end, if your low voltage guy, your AV guy comes in and says, hey, I don't do Savant, I do Elan G, it's like, hey, we don't care if you change that out. We're not, as a design company, we're not gonna say, we're gonna give you like-minded products, right? But we're knowledgeable enough as a design company to say, hey, if Crestron doesn't work with something that's in our design, we're gonna make that known. We're gonna say, hey, that's great that you guys want to use Crestron as your home management system, or Savant, or Elan, or Control4 as your home management system. If you choose to change this out at the last minute, here's the effects of that, right? So at least you're in the know if you want to make that change order. Although we specify the equipment, we are not in the business of locking you guys or your customers into something. We are in the business of telling you how much you need, what those budgets are, and where it should go. And if they want to make changes at the end because they like the user interface better, or there might be a feature of one product versus another, that's great. We're going to make sure everybody's fully educated on what that change means for the overarching system.
Well, Dan, there's another big benefit to early specification, and we haven't talked about it yet, but I think it's important because it's a huge cost saver, is when you specify that lighting fixture, and you're talking about where it's going, if you specify it after it's framed, trusses might be in the wrong spot, right? I just ran into this on a project. I was brought in a little bit late, and they had, I don't know, 18-foot ceilings in their great room. and the fixtures couldn't go where we wanted the fixtures to go. So the builder ended up dropping the ceiling. Now think about that for a second. The electrical contractor had to change his proposal because there's different fixtures. He had to rewire because he'd already wired for the original architect's lighting plan. The GC had to bring another carpenter to reframe that ceiling. The interior designer had to come in and take a look at it, make sure the trims and the beams and the molding still work with that. It affected the windows and doors because they're full height doors in that room. It was a major undertaking just to get the lights where they're supposed to be. And if they'd talked to somebody about it maybe 3 months prior, we could have avoided that cost. And you all know better what that cost was or is than I do, but it's not nothing.
And I think the residual effect, too, is something that we're not talking about, which is we're essentially providing a playbook for all the other people that come after the design aspect. So being able to actually hand over that playbook and just say go gives you just the ability to add a whole nother dimension to this, where we're bringing more people together, more like a team, than instead of having everyone just worrying about their own little siloed part of a project. So you can literally plan for what might happen or what instances might arise over the course of time as a project's being built by simply having the designs that we can provide earlier on.
So being that design technology or design architecture for technology, in my view, is a fairly new thing for this group. Have any of you guys engaged, because there's not very many of them out there. I know there's me, there's Sean, I know a couple other guys from the past across the country that do this. Have any of you guys ever worked with a technology design firm that does that front end understanding all the way through potentially construction drawings, or have you guys always just used your trades? Trades, right? Yeah. So I would assume that's going to be the answer 100%. I wasn't looking for hand raises there because I think it would have been a pretty low answer.
Take the names and phone numbers down.
But the goal here is really to educate you guys that because it's not just about an Internet of Thing device that we have to talk Zigbee to that, or we have to talk Wi-Fi to that, or Bluetooth to that. That stuff was easy. Now we're talking about complete systems in that home that need to work together to provide the experience like what they have at Blue Heron's Vegas Modern Home. So we are presenting something new to you guys, that this is a new thing that's available to high-end builders and to architects to engage in. Yeah.
I have a question. How do you handle like the objection that a buyer is going to have if they're going to invest in a system like this, when they know maybe in a few years from now a lot of it's going to become obsolescent? You know, it's like I think that's why so many of them try and just buy these little onesie-twosie components later, because they just don't want to invest that much in it and see it. This stuff changes so fast.
I think the infrastructure is what's important, right? That infrastructure of that wiring and that pre-wire to every location. They might not want to put that end piece of equipment there, but it's already pre-wired, and as that technology moves around, it's just plug and play at that point. I think that's the important part of that.
Yeah.
Well, but let's talk to obsolescence, because this isn't like smartphones. We do not have refresh cycles that are 18 months long for home controls. At least the historic incumbent home controls have had longer life cycles, more akin to consumer electronic cycles, which is like people, not anymore, but they used to have TVs for 10, 15 years.
Yeah, it's 2 or 3, right?
What's that?
Now it's like 2 or 3. And
Yeah,
it's really
well,
good.
they're so good and they're so cheap to get the new ones.
Yeah.
But I will say, if it's designed right, and I'll use myself as an example, I have a Savant rack that I designed for a house in Texas. I know you put like 100 miles of wire in your house. This is a 2,500 square foot house. I put 6 miles of wire in this 2,500 square foot house, built out a room for my AV rack, and then I sold that house 2 years later with 6 miles of wire stuck in the walls. Probably 30% of it was never used. It was just eventually I was going to do this thing in that area that never happened. So then I took that rack, I threw it in the back of a U-Haul, went across the country, built another house in Charleston, South Carolina, and wired it in a more reasonable fashion, and brought my rack in there, beat the crap out of that rack the whole way there, and fired that thing up, updated the software to the new layout of that home, and everything worked great. That same AV rack is about 7 years old now, and it's in its 3rd house. So going to your point, the infrastructure is critical, because as long as that infrastructure is in that home, I'm cheap, so I can keep pulling this rack behind me everywhere I go to get myself that really killer Savant experience. So.
And don't we have a lot of hardware that just is going to refresh with new software downloads?
That's right. The hardware is all the same, right? We're just updating the software. I'm taking the Mac Mini, which runs my system, and I'm updating the software to the latest and greatest. That's it. The hardware that I paid for at a very discounted rate is all
7 years ago.
7 years ago is all still functioning, right? I'm just updating the software. And now in any home that I build, I'm from a infrastructure standpoint, which is the most important part, especially from the design philosophy at the beginning, right? It's going to be
Basically what you're doing is you're kind of twisting it and saying that if you spend a little bit more investing, it may last longer because.
100%. If it's going to last longer, yeah. And there was another question back there.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. I find the conversation fascinating. I keep finding myself having these flashes of the Jetsons.
Yeah.
And like this is the first baby step, scratching the surface of creating homes that really intuit the living environment.
Which is really, really cool. I'm curious, when you asked the question earlier about do we use consultants to help us design early on, right now we use forensic consultants to help us design the energy efficiency, the energy usage, mechanical systems, because the indoor air quality is changing so quickly. Codes are changing so quickly, municipalities are requiring different things. And so my question with that background is that something that you guys are also encompassing into your design process, the need to understand codes and the changes and what it can forensically do to a house?
Yeah, definitely. So that's one of the things that made Responsive Living even get created as a company. I was working with Savant running the energy division, and so I'm dealing with these very advanced consulting firms that are doing exactly that, right? They're designing energy efficient homes from a mechanical and renewable energy standpoint. And I was fascinated by these firms. I was like, wow, this is all you guys do is full-blown engineering for renewable energy homes to be super efficient. But I was like, how are you guys operating with the low voltage side? How are you guys integrating that into a smart home? They're like, oh, we're not. It's not our thing. So, our view was, hey, let's bring the low voltage and the high voltage, or high voltage and mechanical, together with low voltage into one centralized house. Codes, depending on where you're building, California, Arizona, Texas, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Florida, it is very hard to manage and keep track because, one, they're always changing. But yes, we have to take that burden on. And so what we've done is we've created relationships with companies like the ones you're talking about throughout the country. We've got a network of solar installers that can get things permitted, that can do the plans for us and give us updates on codes. Obviously, we've got a network of AV integrators. So we're not working kind of in the back dark room, right? We are contacting everybody that we know all the time to get information about a certain municipality in California, especially when you get into batteries, right? Try and put a battery system in Manhattan, right? You have to get approval from the local fire station, right? Who's going to go talk to the fire chief to see if you can get approval to do that? But just with batteries specifically, that is a massively changing landscape in terms of how much and where you can put them, indoors, outdoors, how much space, and every code, every county is different. And the AHJs, the authorities having jurisdiction in that county, probably haven't done any research or any continued education in the last 10 years. So when you put in a smart breaker into a home that says Savant on it, they're going to immediately say, you can't put a Savant breaker into a Schneider breaker panel, and then we have to send them a packet of our UL code saying, hey, you can actually do this, and you should probably keep up with what things are changing since you're the authority.
Speaking of AHJs,
Yeah.
the number one reason why technology, formal design, and construction drawings doesn't happen is because it doesn't have to. You don't need a technology plan to get your plans approved. You need a structural plan, you need a mechanical, electrical plan, plumbing plan, but not a technology plan. But that doesn't make it a good reason to not do it.